Sigma is one of the more recent playable characters in the popular shooting game Overwatch. He is a 62-year-old astrophysicist named C. Brandy Cowper, who gained the ability to control gravity after a horrific accident during one of his experiments. He was thrown in a government-sanctioned loony bin with the rest of the SCPs until the bad guy Syndicate Talon broke him out. He is now being employed as a human weapon, but he is completely unaware of this, as he is being manipulated by Talon. He also has a delicious perky ass, and he is my wife. No, but seriously, he's a handsome ugly old man who is very charismatic and sweet.
Do you ever miss it? The moon?
And it just happens to be convenient that his character design includes assless booty shorts. His release was met with great controversy at the time, half because Overwatch fans are tired of being jerked around when it comes to proper character diversity, and the other half because gamer dude brothers feel viscerally threatened anytime a fan brings up a video game company's racist or sexist business choices.
We were developing the character of Malga, and we thought Malga was going to be this character.
Yeah.
But as the abilities started to come together, and Jeff and Josh were putting together this really fun barrier tank, we're like, this doesn't fit the personality of Malga at all. Because Malga seems very aggressive, in your face, where this is like a more deliberate, defensive, almost, dare I say, intellectual tank. And intellectual tank. You gain 200 IQ the second you play this.
Oh my god!
He also has his feet out, which is inherently funny. However, since Blizzard is run by scholars and geniuses, they thought it would be a good idea to have this allude to his insanity, since they allegedly don't allow you any sort of footwear in insane asylums. Because he is insane. In case you forgot, he is an insane crazy man with mental problems. It is a popular headcanon that Sigma has dissociative identity disorder, because during his cinematic there was a scene where he acted a certain way and then acted differently a second later. There was also a scene where his head was shaking side to side very fast, and if you're a film buff who has seen Jacob's Ladder, you know this means mental illness.
How did they even let him out of the freaking hospital?
I, however, don't believe Sigma has dissociative identity disorder, because it's a lazy and boring idea. I do believe he talked to some facet of himself in his mind, while locked away in isolation, like Tom Hanks in Castaway.
Kill all your friends.
Oh, good idea.
But OP, he acts one way during the trailer, and then acts another way shortly after. This is so scary and tragic, I'm shaking.
Oh god! Oh god!
Yes, I'm peeing in my pants, but keep in mind that he is probably rewired to be a completely different person as a Talon agent, and that is still not a sufficient example. This marks the beginning of a fun little section I like to call headcanons, aka I'm a genius and smarter than everyone else. I believe Moira is the only one who has a vested interest in Sigma. I don't think Doomfist would want anything to do with him. He's too unpredictable and could turn on them at any time.
What's your favorite planet?
Well, I don't have a favorite. I find them all fascinating. They're all part of a...
Mine's the sun!
As opposed to everyone else who seems dedicated to the cause. Whatever that is. Reaper and Widowmaker are Moira's other lab rats. Sombra is doing her own thing. I still don't know who Maximilian is. Therefore, Sigma and his abilities would be perfect for a scary biogeneticist witch to toy with, since his powers developed innately as opposed to having been granted through cybernetic augmentation. We know Moira has a thing for superhumans, since she was able to alter Reaper's DNA and turn him into Noob Saibot. This is also another example of Blizzard's genius, because we could have had a Devourer like Widowmaker, but nobody in Blizzard's creative department knows how to create female characters that won't be used for SFM porn later. But OP, what about the thing on his head? The clamp on his head acts as a mind control device. Note how it hooks up to those weird little lights in the grooves on his temples. That alone must have something to do with manipulating his perception. The glowing section on the back is meant to monitor his brain waves, which is why it brightens during his ultimate. The clamp's purpose is essentially like an electric dog collar. It lets Moira know when Sigma is approaching Ultra Instinct, so that she can get him back under control.
Thought he'd never shut up.
I say this because the attention given to the back of his head is intentional, because that is where the cerebellum is, and the cerebellum is in charge of motor functions.
Bring yourself back online, Bernard.
What have I done?
This guilt you feel, the anguish, the horror, the pain, it's remarkable. A thing of beauty.
I'm a killer. My God. My God.
God has nothing to do with it. You killed her because I told you to.
I will not help you. Raise this place to hell!
That's enough, Bernard. That's enough.
The phallus on his back relates to this, because it must have something to do with centering his gravity, so that he can focus it, and use it more accurately, making him less unpredictable. For all we know, Moira can turn him off, and have him enter Robocop mode, making him totally obedient to the point of dehumanization, and nullifying any ability or potential he has to question his situational or directive for.
You know, you're really very lucky. We can do in moments with you what would take years with a human patient.
I'm really very lucky.
You're free. You're free from doubt, free from having to make painful choices.
I am free.
I believe Moira achieves this through nanobiotic technology.
Nanomachine, son!
But OP, those are really long words. Please explain. Gladly. As per the Akira references in her sprays, I believe Moira is an extremely powerful telekinetic who uses the same principle of accuracy on herself through her energy backpack, which looks strikingly similar to Sigma's back thing. Moira uses her biotic grasp to disassemble and absorb matter, where it is then converted into nanobiotic vapor, and released from her other hand. We've seen something similar to this in the trailer for Overwatch 2, where Mercy heals Mei with an energy pulse from her suit. I believe Moira has convinced Sigma that he is part of some kind of intensive therapy program, especially since his lab is not even stationed in Talon headquarters. As his primary doctor, Moira could have created and administered false medication, which acts as a vehicle for the nanobiotic tech. Once ingested, Moira is able to log into Sigma's body and turn him off in the process. Think of the film Get Out, minus the gore. The helmet could also be explained away as a method to treat his brain damage, by giving him more brain damage. Ha 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 ha. Anyway, I like this theory because of the overarching theme of puppets, and I like puppets. It also makes the idea of an escaped Sigma more vindicating. If you listen to some of their voice lines, and pay attention to some of their animations, you'll notice some similarities. I mention this because I like the idea of Moira's mannerisms rubbing off on him, because the themes of transhumanist surveillance and invasion in a cyberpunk setting are always interesting. Do not even think about suggesting romantic connotations, because I will vomit directly into your mouth. Sigmoira fans are clinically insane due to the bacteria from their yeast infections colonizing their brains like those mushroom monsters in The Last of Us. It's hard being a Sigma fan scrolling in his general tag and getting a whiff of rank pussy from around the corner when you know you're about to encounter Sigmoira rape fetish fan art number 731. Modestat is $12 plus tax at your local drugstore. Anyway, this all loops back to Sigma not having an alternate personality. He has moments of lost time, in which he is suppressed to make room for Moira invading his mind.
Get out of my fucking head!
Any brief moments of clarity are explained away as vivid nightmares. In the event that Moira wants to punish him for crying out for help during those moments of clarity, she makes him do it to himself, so that his need for rehabilitation is emphasized more, and so that it's made clear that he needs outside help.
I don't want to kill you. What would I do without you? Go back to ripping off mob dealers? No. No, you complete me.
You're garbage who kills for money.
Don't talk like one of them. You're not. Even if you'd like to be. To them, you're just a freak. Like me.
I like Moira as an irredeemable villain. She's funny as hell and nothing about her really warrants any kind of sympathy. Unless you're a Moisey shipper. In which case go away. I'm not holding my breath at all for any substantial Overwatch lore in the future, but I like imagining a liberated Sigma and Moira duking it out a la Gogeta vs Brawly. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. If I analyze any further we'd just end up going into how Talon as a terrorist organization makes no sense. And I absolutely do not care enough to make another whole video in which I rewrite Blizzard's shitty lore. Hope you enjoyed this video. I want Mauga. Where are you? Also, like and subscribe, I guess.
Or don't. I don't give a shit.
I've been trying to figure something in my head, and maybe you can help me out, yeah? When a person is insane, as you clearly are, do you know that you're insane? Maybe you're just sitting around, reading Guns and Ammo, masturbating in your own feces. Do you just stop and go, wow, it is amazing how fucking crazy I really am? Yeah? Do you guys do that?
What happened?
Okay, sit back.
Where am I?
Sit back.
What is that melody?
Sit back, you fucking freak!